And I think I can say, but I will write to him if I'm wrong on this, that any further SIs will be affirmative. I think it is important to make a distinction between affirmative and negative orders. The noble lord will know that whenever legislation goes through, governments of whatever political suasion are often tempted, just in making some small concession, to offer to turn a negative order into an affirmative, and oppositions often push for this, thinking they've achieved some great victory. I've certainly done it in opposition, and actually we very often then burden both houses with some unnecessary affirmative orders. And I can think in the past of a very large number of affirmative paralytic shellfish orders that kept littering the order paper that would probably have been far better. I can't remember what the paralytic shellfish orders were about, but would have been probably far better left as negatives. And I can just see some minister at some point making some generous gesture in the course of the committee stage of some bill to suit some opposition of whatever colour to make them. But as far as I know, they will be affirmative, and I'm sure if they're inappropriately try to make them negative, I'm sure that the appropriate committees, chaired by the noble lord's noble friend Lord Cunningham and others, will correct us on that. Can I also apologise briefly, but not completely apologise, for the size of the regulation? Rather rashly, I'd be tempted to say, you ain't seen nothing yet. But actually, being more honest and frank about it, I think I could say that very often it makes life more convenient for the users if we put everything into one order, and we get a better end product. The noble lord says it is 81 pages, and he's exactly correct in that, and then there are a further few pages of explanatory memorandum. I think to have to repeat this debate 5 times with 5 orders of 5 into 80 might be a less satisfactory process. So I apologise, but don't really apologise, and I think it is the appropriate way of getting these things done. And I repeat that also to the noble Lord Lord Teverson, who did at least welcome the tone of the explanatory memorandum and said just how much actions of this sort, even with rising electricity bills, rising electricity costs, could do to reduce one's electricity bills. I can actually suggest another mechanism to him, and that is to get one's children out of the house, which happens when they get to a certain age. And as he will know, the noble Lord McNichol shakes his head, but I think the noble Lord Teverson knows exactly what.
Can I agree in that my wife's 40-year-old daughter has just left the house and moved elsewhere? So a very appropriate comment, and I look forward to the reduction in electricity bills.
I wasn't actually thinking of those who'd reached the maturity of 40. I was thinking of the somewhat younger ones who take possibly, despite their extraordinary green credentials, take a slightly less purist approach to turning off lights and other procedure. What I want to do is just now deal quickly with some of the questions. On the impact assessment, I can assure the noble Lord McNichol that the instrument's impacts were assessed at below the annual cost of £5 million, and that was why a full impact assessment was not required, but a de minimis impact analysis was undertaken to reach this conclusion. In doing so, the department followed the guidance. So we're happy about that. Again, on a consultation, I can assure both noble lords that we worked very closely with industry and other organisations, meeting them, keeping them up to date via emails. And in the summer of last year, officials met all the appropriate trade bodies, consulted them on our intended approach. Views were sought on the proposal to keep the design of the energy label, remove obligations in relation to the EU product database, and retain the legislative functions carried out by the Commission for the Secretary of State. And in the main, as far as I know, the trade bodies supported all these proposals, and they stressed the importance of not creating new costs for businesses and the importance of the UK being able to legislate after exit. Can I deal then with some of the more detailed points? The Noble Lord Teverson asked about policing of this. For eco-design, enforcement and control activities carried out by the Office for Product Safety and Standards, and for energy labelling, enforcement and control activities are carried out by the that office and by local authorities, trading standards in Great Britain, and by the Department for the Economy in Northern Ireland. And the regulations will not result in any way in a change in that policy. Now, he also asked about who holds the product register, and is there one for the UK. There is no UK database, but there is an EU-wide database which went live on the 1st of January this year. There have been delays on the public section of that database, but it remains broadly on track. And after exit, we will review whether to introduce a UK database, and again I can give an assurance that we'll consult on that. He also asked about appliances whether all appliances under SI are going to be covered from the point of exit, and I can give an assurance that the changes come into force on exit day and there will be no gaps. The Noble Lord McNichol had concerns that there could be a reduction in standards, but I can give him an assurance that we continue to support all these policy measures which cut energy bills, increase energy security, and as stated in the Clean Growth Strategy, we will keep step with equivalent standards, but intend to go further, where, as I think I said in my opening remarks, we believe it's in the interests of the UK. I've dealt with his concerns about consultation. Yes, if I can just correct myself on the affirmative nature of SIs. They will be affirmative, however, only the SI that's not identical to EU standards will be affirmative. Sorry, if they are not identical to the EU standards, they will be negative. I think I've got that the right way around, but I hope that the other way around, yes. Anyway, the Noble Lord has understood me. And he also wanted clarification on designated standards in the explanatory memorandum. The instrument renames the EU's harmonised standards. That's the testing standards that can be used for the verification of compliance products with EU requirements as designated standards. Designated standards will give rise to a presumption of conformity with UK legal requirements in the same way that the EU's harmonised standards do in relation to EU requirements. And to ensure continuity and not drive up testing costs, the testing standards in the UK and EU will remain the same, and that is what the UK industry wants. And the reference to designated standards will again be published on gov.uk. Lords, I believe that deals with the points that have been raised. My Lords, I beg leave to move.
Question is that this motion be agreed to. As many as of that opinion will say content. Contrary, not content. The contents have it.